Nietzsche said God is dead, and WAP proved it. But people still need to worship, and that is where the cult of self comes in. In this video, we will be covering those obsessive beauty and skincare routines as rituals in the cult of self. Of course, we can all look better with a little bit of effort, but there comes a point of diminishing returns when all that extra time, money, and effort is just devotional. Now, where in the 10-step glass skincare routine is that point? Plus, what is glamour magic, and why do I prefer it to these tedious routines? The answer may actually surprise you. We reviewed the cult of self last year. I'll give you a brief recap. This man called Paul Vitz wrote a book called The Cult of Self. Basically, the premise of the book is that the field of psychology in Vitz's day was so focused on the self as the supreme being that it would be better to describe psychology as a religion. He calls that religion selfism, the worship of the self in place of God, and he says that it was the overwhelming ideology of his day. Now, that was 1977, and that still rings true for today. Now, to defend selfism, I've met myself, but God is harder to pin down. That's all I'm going to say. Now, we have a whole discipline focused on the self. It's called self-care, and that ranges from meditation to relaxation. Today, I'm talking very specifically about skincare. And for the record, I am all about self-care, and I don't think it should be confined to the religion of selfism. If you believe that God gave you your body, you should take care of that gift. And I think self-care is an important development in modern societies, and our ancestors were deeply lacking in self-care because it was harder for them. They couldn't afford it. They didn't have the time, the knowledge, or the resources. So I'm very grateful that we have it now. But of course, this can go too far. Just like going to church can help you become a better person, but someone can also go to church to avoid their problems in life. They can give so much time and money to the church that it actually harms them and harms their family. Religion demands ritual. Now, what is ritual? This is a definition from Science Direct. I think it's very good. Rituals are defined as repetitive behaviors performed by social groups that have important social, psychological, and symbolic dimensions, and they utilize standardized objects, movements, and sounds without a direct technical effect. Let's take a look at this morning unmasking ritual. Some of this is actually essential. The heatless curls, you need that. But look at the chin strap, the face mask, the lip mask. How can you sleep with all that stuff on? And I guess it's ruling out any possibility of hanky-panky with your partner. This chin strap actually reminds me of a chastity belt, and I imagine it kind of functions the same way. Now, I watch a lot of these skincare routines, and many of these girls don't really look very different from step 3 to step 7. Would they have looked much different if they just washed their face with some hot water and put on a moisturizer with some SPF? I respect a good self-care routine. It's essential to achieving your best physical version and maintaining that. But that's not what we're seeing here. Many of these girls would look the same or better with a lot less effort. So why all the fuss? Yeah, some of them probably do have OCD, but I don't think that explains the whole story, at least not why they are broadcasting these routines to the world. Like, why does an 11-year-old need a beauty routine? Why is she being initiated into this bizarre obsession already? These women are showing sacrifice and devotion to their god, vanity, my absolute favorite god or goddess. What are they willing to leave on her altar? Yes, it's a cardinal sin. It's also a thought form made real by our devotion. And yes, it's vanity, but I like to refer to her as the goddess of beauty because it's softer. And I like the goddess of beauty because she delivers. Look at women now, seriously. If they take care of themselves, they're often very, very beautiful. Of the people who, maintain their physical fitness, a lot of them are straight up hot now. That cute barista that you see every day, she may have been the most beautiful maiden in all of Northumbridge, and bards would have sung stories about her. These beautiful women are just everywhere now. People are working out, they're eating better, the beauty information is spreading via the internet, and in my opinion, it's more noticeable in women than men, but some of these dudes are very cute too. Effort really does pay off, but only to a certain extent. If a woman wants to make a huge jump or change soft tissue or cartilage, she needs surgery. And people are getting surgery, and it looks good on many of them, let's be honest. But it's not cheap, and it has its complications. And there are different levels to this devotion. The people on the periphery, like myself, we give a little here and there. We leave a coin at the altar. But the people in the inner circle who are getting the surgery, they are sacrificing blood and pain and a lot of money. And why are people willing to bleed for vanity? Because it's worth it to them. Beauty is power for women. People say, why go through all the trouble? It's because society is vain and it rewards it. Yes, we could look into a person's soul. We could ask, are they a good person? Are they a good friend? Literally nobody cares. Social media culture is beyond shallow. How does a person look? That's what they're asking. What is the image that they project? As we have less family and less community, our online presence has taken a greater significance in our social lives. The time was that you were valuable to your community because you were so-and-so's cousin and you had a skill. Families are smaller and they are more spread out now. That's where we are. So these girls really are not insane. They correctly believe that we live in a very shallow society and our religion is selfism. You can at me in the comments, but I believe that women in general needed to learn this lesson. You go through history and you see girls being used as commodities, as pawns in their families' plans, as mouths to feed, as breeders, as workers, as accessories. Their beauty benefited others and not them, and often it was a liability for them. So, of course, the cult of self is helpful to young women and girls. When we lived under different systems, people just used us. They used us and it wasn't for our benefit. We ended up in someone's harem or sold for goats or whatever. I also feel that powerful people have always been living under the cult of self, even when we were supposedly living in more traditional societies. Isn't it convenient that traditional cultures favored a very few powerful families and often men? You mean to tell me that these men weren't already living in the cult of self? They just convinced the rest of us that devotion to God or to family or to the country was the highest value. Funny that that devotion also benefited them. How convenient. This is why Machiavelli wrote The Prince, to let honest people know that there are rules no matter what the people at the top try to tell you. So now we very unapologetically live in the cult of self-worship. These particular girls are like priestesses to selfism. And I like it because it's ritual and it's devotion, full stop. I appreciate the commitment. Some people wake up and they pray or they meditate or they practice Gijong. This is an act of devotion. For me, it saves time because I don't have to pray, I don't have to move to a convent or worship a faceless God. Like, who has time for all of that? But for others, it really does waste time. They lead this full monastic lifestyle, but for beauty. And this is what I mean, this point of diminishing returns. Now, a monastic life comes in many forms. You might think of nuns who live in convents. They take vows of poverty and celibacy, and they spend their time working on the land or in study. Now, obviously, we do not see the renunciation of worldly goods from these TikTok beauty influencers. Quite the opposite, actually. However, I am willing to hear the argument that these luxury items are some kind of religious selfism artifacts in this beauty cult. Now, many people can't really afford to buy these expensive creams, but they buy them anyway to show their devotion. And I have been cream shopping, and it's like praying to different saints and hoping that one of them will answer your prayers. And what sometimes actually does happen is you have a hormonal shift, and it has nothing to do with the cream or the offering. It was just chance. And yes, I am getting whiffs of celibacy from these TikTok beauty reels. Of course, many men are useless, and it is not worth it's just not worth getting into relationships with them. So their celibacy calculus is correct. That's why people became nuns back in the day too. Don't get it twisted. This is not new. Women have been giving up on men for hundreds of years. But when I do see a man in this video, he's just an afterthought. If he's involved at all, he's an afterthought. Because men do not care about skincare routines. If a girl's like, girl, we can't date, your skin isn't glass, that's not your boyfriend. That's your new gay BFF. And if you want a lavender marriage, God bless. Just don't kid yourself about it. Women are not doing this to attract straight men. Just like men are not getting their modern warfare standing higher to attract women. You think that, men care about beauty and women care about strength and prowess. So shouldn't the opposite sex be obsessed with these skincare videos and these video game rankings? No. They do not care. And if they do, it's a major, major red flag. Now, as content creators, these priestesses are individuals inviting you into their mental space. They are, in my opinion, actually trying to help other women. They are making videos as an act of service. They are missionaries for the goddess of beauty. Now, that is a missionary I do not want to chase into the sea with spears. However, how much are they actually helping? Are they projecting mental illness? Is that mental space that they are inviting you into healthy? Now, that depends on the individual, both the influencer and the viewer. Let's be honest, you do not need all this stuff. These girls are using like 10 or more products on their face. Either they're doing that just for the video or they are just doing way too much in life. Most people do not need 10 products. You get your health in order with your doctor, your nutritionist, and your gym. Then you get your sleep and you treat any underlying stressors. Then for skincare, you'll find 2 or 3 things that really work for you, and it's trial and error. The global skincare market is between 150 and 200 billion annually, and it's expected to rise. How much of these products are actually valuable, and how many of them are simply ritualistic? Why do these influencers sacrifice so much? It's because they think the goddess will reward them with more beauty and more power. Now, I'm all for glam magic. It doesn't fit into everyone's belief system, but you do you. You know I love me a white witch. I think women who practice glamour magic have a better understanding of what these skincare rituals are actually doing. Now, for you newbies, glamour magic is a type of spell casting that incorporates beauty rituals into setting intentions and projecting your will. I like this practice because it's not very different than these elaborate skincare routines, but these witches actually understand what they are doing. They are not worshiping at the altar of Sephora and losing their power to others. They are using Sephora to make themselves more powerful. It's more deliberate. So you might say, witchcraft is forbidden in my religion. Fair enough. But how far are these beauty routines, these 10-step beauty routines, different from a using glam magic ritual? A rose by any other name is still a rose. The woman increases her power through devotion to fill in the blank, Aphrodite, whoever you want. And that devotion is shown through the ritual. And this gets into how magic is on the periphery of many religions. You say, no, we don't use magic. I know you were not a Christian saying that, because early Christians, yes, they used a lot of magic. If you break down spellcasting, even today, if you break down spellcasting and these prayer rituals, they're actually very similar. But we can't actually have that discussion because makes people uncomfortable. So, to all of my high priestesses of selfism, you all look fabulous. Just don't overdo the skincare treatments too early. It'll damage your skin, and we need you serving the goddess of beauty for many, many years to come. Thank you, and I will see you next week.